sidecars conformed to Formula 2 standards, and the senior was for Formula 1 machines. But the enthusiasm was no different, and neither was the behavior of the bikers. They'd come to enjoy themselves and to watch some real racing around a challenging course. The familiar names were all here: Steve Hislop, Dave Leach, Carl Fogarty and the rest. And for one man, Dave Saville, it was to be an unforgettable week. The poor weather of practice week had caused the cancellation of Friday's racing, so the Supersport 400 replaced the sidecars on Saturday afternoon. But the weather had improved and Douglas was bathed in sunshine as the riders gathered for the start. In the warm-up area, the island's Lieutenant Governor was taking a keen interest in what was going on. Sadly for him, this was his final TT before retiring from office.
Well, I think we're both going to miss it very much. The present plan, of course, is not to be away for much more than 3 or 4 years. So when we come back, we shall find a little pitch up at Windy Corner, I think, and watch from there. But we certainly are going to miss it for a while.
Were you a fan of motorcycling before you came here?
Well, of course, I was a boy here. Used to get up at 4 in the morning from King William's College.
There's a tradition during TT that the middle Sunday belongs to the bikers. That's the day when they go out onto the course in their droves to Brandish. Next down the hill is number 9, Brian Reid, chasing Steady Eddie Laycock. But Reid is still seeing Hislop pull away. He's now 28.6 seconds down. But he in turn is pulling away from 4th placed Manny and Newton. And that's despite Newton becoming the 4th rider to break the old lap record. This is the man that Hislop has to fear. Ian Lucker is just 3.5 seconds behind as they aim for a fuel stop. So the positions at the end of lap 2, Hislop, Lucker, Reid, as Hislop pushes the lap record to 116.55 miles an hour. Into Ramsey on lap 3, and the junior cursor struck Hislop again. A bungled fuel uplift has cost him valuable time, and as he begins the climb up to the veranda, Ian Lucker has reduced his lead to less than 2.5 seconds. The Welshman is now smelling the chance of victory, as for the first time in the race, Hislop's lead is reducing. Out of the veranda and into Brandywell, Hislop is really trying on the long right-hander. But so is Lucker, and if anything, he seems marginally quicker, with just 5 miles of the penultimate lap left. Hislop at Cronkney-Mona on the approach to Signpost Corner, and once again he's broken Eddie Laycock's former lap record of 114.04 miles an hour, and that was from a standing start. And as he makes his way down to Governors to start the last lap, he must feel that the elusive junior title is his for the taking. But unseen behind him, Ian Lucker is living up to the promise of fastest lap in practice. His 250 Yamaha is going sweetly, and the Welshman is perfectly placed to make his move on the last circuit of the 37-mile mountain course. So it's back through Parliament Square in Ramsey for the 4th and final time. And just look at Hislop as he takes the bend wide and then tries to recover his racing line. But Lucker is in a gaggle of back markers, and as he approaches the corner, he outbreaks them both to power his way out of the town with just 14 miles of the race to go. Hislop comes off the veranda and past the Motorcycle Museum and the tight left-hander before bumping over the tram lines and leading hard the opposite way. By now he must know that the race is in the balance. But again, Lucker is faced with passing a back marker before accelerating up Halewood Rise towards Brandywell. And at the grandstand, it's Hislop first across the line, but he's faced with an agonizing wait. Lucker started 50 seconds behind the Scot, and all eyes are trained for the first sight of number 17 appearing over the rise from Governor's Bridge. And Lucky Lucker takes the checkered flag with only 1.8 seconds to spare, setting yet another lap record of 117.8 miles an hour. But despite doing that, he's been unsure of victory.
I'm not sure if I'd won it when I came in, and I just tried to keep concentration and just kept going hard at it, you know.
I mean, how aware are you of your position out on the road when you're in the race?
I had good signals. I had a signal at Glenshannon, another one at the Gooseneck, and also at Windy Corner. So they were good signalers, and they've done their job well.
So how do you feel having beaten the Flying Agus?
Brilliant, you know. It's the man to beat. I was hoping that Steve would keep going because it'd be
I wanted to win the junior, but just seemed to be jinxed with the thing all the time.
So an unhappy Hislop, but joy for Ian Lucker, taking the title and setting a new race record. Second was Steve Hislop, and third last year's number 2, Eddie Laycock. And watching the fourth closest finish in TT history was the new president of the Autocycle Union, MP Michael Jopling. He was having a thoroughly enjoyable time.
Well, it's great fun. It's a great honour to be invited to take over from Hector Munro. Of course, Hector and I joined the House of Commons on the same day 25 years ago. And it's quite a hard act to follow, but I'm loving doing it, and it's great to be back on the island.
But of course, you're no stranger to the motorcycle, are you?
No, I've ridden a bike for quite a long time. I've got a BMW at the moment, which I use quite a lot, particularly in the summer. It lives in the House of Commons car park most of the summer months, and the policemen there get quite used to me.
So are you enjoying the races?
Enormously. That was a terrific race, the junior, tremendous. All won on a filler cap, really.
And there's more from the road racing capital of the world next, with exclusive onboard pictures from the sidecars. Two-stroke. Saville had achieved the magic 100-mile-an-hour lap in practice and was hoping for a repeat in the race.
I was hoping before I came over here to do 100 mile an hour this year, because last year we set a record of 99.23, so really it was on the cards this year, and I was quite pleased in practice. I must admit I didn't realise I'd done it. I was as much surprised as anybody else, because there was quite a headwind coming up the mountain.
Second fastest in practice was old hand Mick Boddice, but he was a good 2.5 miles an hour down on Dave Saville and was having problems with his outfit.
We've had a bit of trouble in practice. I hope we've got it sorted out now.
So what sort of time will you be looking for?
I hope over 100. Just see how it goes.
Leading the race off, it was Kenny Howes and Steve Pointer. They were second in this event last year on a 700 Yamaha. Next away, Boddice and Wells. Boddice took the second race last year and was second fastest for practice in 1990. But this was the pair to watch, Dave Saville and Dick Roach, fastest in practice with a 100-mile-an-hour lap. And as Saville said before the race, he was out to do it for real when it really mattered. And he looked determined to succeed as the green machine hurtled down towards Bray Hill. At Union Mills, Howes and Pointer are first on the road, with Steve Pointer hanging far out to the left. Next through come Boddice and Wells on the 600 Honda. But Saville and Roach are sparing nothing as they come hurtling through, Nick Roach tucking himself down under the fairing on the exit from the village. Back on board with Dave Saville on the 350 Yamaha. This year the sidecar rules have been changed again to Formula 2 standards. That's 301 to 350cc two-stroke or 401 to 600 four-stroke. And that's Mick Boddice on the 600 Honda and Saville sights as they swing right and then left. And just look at the ease with which Saville's machine pulls past last year's winner of the B race. So Saville powers on, and there's just one more ahead before he's out on his own. Ballarat Bridge, and it's still Howes and Pointer out in front. But just look at that, Saville and Roach are right on their tail. And once again we see the mastery of the man from Retford through the eyes of his passenger as he eases up alongside the #1 machine. But he doesn't have it all his own way. Kenny Howes finds another few horsepower and manages to pull back in front. Into Quarry Bends with the passengers hanging out far to the left, and then it's back down as low as they can to reduce the wind resistance. But Dave Saville hasn't given up. On the approach to Sulby, he makes his move and takes the lead on the road. And And the evidence of that is clear. It's Saville first into Ramsey. He's had an amazing 23 miles. He's got a 3-second lead over Kenny Howells on the road. That's a 33-second race lead. And he's 20 seconds ahead of second place Mick Bodis. And as the crowds watch number 3 Bodis fighting to hang on, it's already becoming clear that this is a one-horse race. The sidecars have an interesting history here on the Isle of Man. Although they first raced in the 1920s, it was only in 1960 that they were reintroduced on the mountain course. That's number 6, Neil Smith, and Stephen Mace. They're lying in 3rd place. Back on board now with Saville and Roach, and this is history in the making. The approach to Governor's Bridge and the sharp hairpin onto the old road, and then the end of the first lap is nearly in sight. And what a lap it's been. Saville held the lap record for this class of sidecar at 99.23 miles an hour. But that record is about to be shattered from a standing start. As Saville accelerates up through the gears towards the grandstand, even he must know that it's a new lap record. The king of Formula 2 has done it again. He set the lap record in every race except one since 1984, and this is the magic one he's been yearning for. 100.25 miles an hour. But there's no time for celebrations yet. There's still 75 miles of the toughest road racing in the world before the checkered flag. At the end of lap 1, Saville leads Bodis by a massive 29 seconds. Neil Smith trails in 3rd place, a further 13.2 seconds down, and he leads Kenny Howells by 8.2 seconds. And just look at this man go. This is the part of the circuit that passenger Nick Roach says is the most difficult, but seeing this, you wouldn't know it. Down now to Quarter Bridge, and they are going like a rocket. The combination slips sideways on the perfect road conditions, and then it's off down Peel Road on another lap. Saville takes a perfect line through the left and right-hand bends over the bridge, and then he's off heading for Union Mills. Behind, it's Bodis and Howells together through Quarter Bridge as number 3 Bodis passes his rival from his hometown. This is sidecar racing at its best as the two pairs fight it out for honours in front of a crowd that's loving every minute. 3rd place Smith and Mace follow on, fighting to stay in contention, with Mace taking time for a quick glance back to make sure he hasn't left anyone behind. Back on board now with Saville, and this is the approach to Union Mills. He's fast into the right-hander before bending left and accelerating hard out of the village. This man has got the most astonishing record in this sport. He's won his class 7 times since 1985. But his change of passenger this year has done him no harm at all. Just sit for a moment and watch this man go. Meanwhile, behind them, the positions on the road have changed again, with Kenny Howells having got past Mick Bodis. Mick Bodis is no slouch at this sport either. He's a 7 times TT winner, having first ridden this course on a BSA in 1966. His fastest lap in a sidecar is a scorching 108.31 miles an hour. Into Ramsey for the 2nd time, and Saville is increasing his lead. There seems to be no stopping him now as he breaks for the tight right-hander in Parliament Square. At Brandywell, it would be hard to imagine Nick Roach making himself any smaller as the pair hurtle by on the way down off the mountain. This is Bodis and Wells. Their tussle with Kenny Howells and Steve Pointer seems to be over. They've pulled well clear now and are nearly half a minute ahead on the road. Here comes Howells now. He's still in 4th place and dropping back on time. At Crockney-Mona, the mean green machine hurtles into view, and it's obvious it's been another scorcher of a lap. Dave Saville has broken the lap record again, this time pushing the average to 100.61 miles an hour. It's down Bray Hill for the final time, and nothing short of disaster can stop Saville now. His lead over 2nd place crew Bodis and Wells has risen to over a minute, and there's nothing at all that they can do about that. Howells and Pointer are noticeably slower in 4th place. They lapped at 96.65 miles an hour. It's this pair, Neil Smith and Stephen Mace, who are 3rd, just under 19 seconds down on Bodis and Wells. Back with the onboard camera with David Saville and Nick Roche, and this, for the first time, is the view that the passenger never gets of a trip around the TT course. Nick Roche is tucked up behind the fairing, allowing Dave Saville to get every ounce of energy out of the 350 Yamaha engine. Just watch for a minute in the run-up to Ballacrane and see for yourself how a champion drives the course. That's Ballacrane, and Saville's lead is growing all the time. It's now up to 1 minute and a quarter. But by Brandywell, he's added yet another 10 seconds, and there really isn't anyone that can come near him. He can afford to ease off now and enjoy the ride home. But that isn't good enough for him. Saville wants another 100-mile-an-hour lap to give him a 100-plus race average. There's Smith and Mace through Brandywell for the final time. They look safe for third place. They're more than a minute ahead of number 1 Kenny Howes and Steve Pointer in fourth. Down to Crockney-Mona with less than 2 miles to go, and Saville is within reach of his aim. And as the eyes in the grandstand search for the first sign of number 4 Dave Saville, that aim becomes a reality. A final lap at 100.94 miles an hour to give him a race average of 100.72. What a day for the man from Retford.
So how was that? It looked fabulous from the
side.
side.
I had a good ride from start to finish. I tried to go as hard as I could to start with. I wanted to only be first to do 100-mile-an-hour lap officially, you know. So, and I got a signal to Glenn Salmon on the second lap and said 100 plus, so I was quite happy being.
But you just seem to keep going away from everyone else.
Yeah, well, when I got that 100 up first off, I thought it's worth going for, try and get 100 average. Not being big-headed, but I was hoping for it, and they told me they have done it.
So does a 100-mile-an-hour lap feel different from the rest?
No, not really. I think once you've done 100 mile an hour, you know, it seems to come relatively easy.
Right, so what about Wednesday?
Same thing on Wednesday, I hope.
So a happy Dave Saville, complete with the winner's cap, poses for the photograph, and even Nick Roche is wearing a smile.
Yeah, it was a lot easier than I thought it would be. The hardest part obviously was learning to relax, and I did that in practice. The way it got on, the more and more I relaxed, and the more I wanted to get back. And Dave would trying on the first lap to try and catch Mick Bodice, and so after we passed him it was a bit easy, and then nobody in front of us when we passed Kenny Howes as well. So
there must be frightening moments for a passenger out of the TT course.
No, it doesn't frighten me at all, no. If it frightens you, you shouldn't do it, because there's more in your life at stake.
And up on the winners' rostrum, Dave Saville and Nick Roche prepare for the traditional champagne spraying ceremony. The result then of the sidecar A race: first Dave Saville and Nick Roche on the 350 Yamaha, setting a new race average of 100.72 miles an hour. Second, Mick Bodice and Dave Wells on a 600 Honda. And third, Neil Smith and Steve Mace on another 350 Yamaha.
And then when they walk in, and after 2 hours they come out, and they, you know, it just shakes them. Yeah.